Everyone, let's solve question 1193, monthly transactions 1. So the question asks us to write an SQL query to find for each month and country the number of transactions and their total amount, the number of approved transactions and their total amount. We can also return the result table in any order. So seems like a fairly straightforward question. Let's try to look at the example provided and see how we can approach solving the question. So we have a transactions table, and let's look at the output first. So we see that for the month of December in 2018, we have a single row. So let's track back to the input column. The input table. Here we see that there are two rows, the second row and the first row, which belong to country US, and the date or the transaction date is December 2018. So let's look at these two things, right? These two rows. So here we have so these two rows have been aggregated into this output row, right? So let's try and break the output down. So we have the country as US, the month as December 2018. We see that the transaction count is 2. So this is a column that is created. So since there are two transactions, the transaction count is 2. The approved count is 1. And approved count is simply the count of total number of transactions where the state is approved. So there are two transactions, but only one is approved. So we have approved as 1. The total transaction amount is simply the aggregation of the amount across all the columns. So we have 1000 plus 2000, which is 3000. And finally, we have approved total amount, which corresponds to the total amount for all transactions only which have been in an approved state. So again, there's just one row which is 1000, so we have 1000. So it seems like a fairly straightforward question, and all that we need to do is group by the transaction date, basically the month and year, and the country US. So I'm going to start writing the query, and just group it by those two things first. So select star. Again, star is a placeholder. We're going to replace it with all the columns that we really need to build for this question. So select star from transactions table, transactions, and we need to group by. So we need to group by, and the question says we need to group by each month and country, but I think it's a little vague when they say month. What they mean by month is the month and the year. So this is what they mean. So it's the month and the year. So we need to group by month and year, and also the country. So I'm going to say group by date format. The column we need to group by is by trans date, and since we need only the year and the month, I'm going to say percentage y hyphen percentage m. So that's going to give us just the year hyphen the month. So we want to group by this and country. So that's pretty much it. Now all that we need to do is build out these different columns by performing certain specific aggregations as I suggested earlier. So I'm going to say select, remove the star, and let's build this out column by column. So first thing that we need is month, and again we need the year hyphen month, right? So it's going to be the same thing. So it's this is what we need, and I'm going to alias this as month. The next column we need is country, so country, and then there is a column called transaction count, trans count. So that's the total number of transactions after we group by the month and the country. So that's going to be, I'm going to say count start, because we just need to count, and let's alias that as trans count, trans count. And the next one is the approved count. So we need to find all transactions once after grouping which have been approved. So I'm going to use a case when statement. So case when state is equal to approved, then 1, else let's just say 0, and end this case when statement, alias this as approved count. And since we need to count these, right, how many transactions have been approved. So if there's one for a particular row, if the state is approved, it's going to it's going to return 1, and we need to count these. So I'm going to say sum of this particular not really a subquery, but sum of this case. So every time it's a 1, I'm going to keep summing that and aggregating it. So that's the next column. Then we have to then we need to create a column for total transaction amount. So again, that's a simple aggregation. So I'm going to say sum of amount, let's alias that as total transaction amount. And finally we have approved total amount. So again, the same thing, we need a case when statement because we need to filter the transactions which have a state of approved. So case when, I'm going to say state equals approved, then, and this time we need to sum up the amount, right? Previously here we were just counting them, so it was 1, but since we need to sum them up, I'm going to say amount else 0, end as approved total amount. And here again we need to sum it up. So here we are summing up the total amount where the state of the transaction is approved. So let's just give it a quick check. Looks all good. I'm going to go ahead and run this to see what we get. Okay, so we're getting an incorrect result. We see that. Let's try to analyze. Okay, so if you see here, we're getting the month, which is December and Jan and all, but what we really need is the number of corresponding to each month. And the reason for that is here, what I need to do is I need to filter it. So instead of an uppercase, I need to use a lowercase, I believe. I think that should fix it. Okay, so the test case has been accepted. I'm going to go ahead and submit it to see if all test cases pass. Perfect. So our solution has been accepted, and that's how you solve this question. Thank you, everyone.